Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have a great show coming up for you today on GoJo Golic. Here's what you have to look forward to. Captains were named across the NFL. We'll get into some perhaps surprises. Plus, we will give some predictions on who wins this year's NFL awards. And A'ja Wilson rocking a white tee. We'll explain why she's doing that. All that and more coming up on GoJo Golic.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and the return of Jesse Cofield to the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a great show for everybody. As always, download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings network. Jam-packed with guests today. We have got ELI DRINKWITZ, the head coach of the Missouri Tigers, stopping by off a 1-0 start for them as contenders in the SEC. Annie Agar going to stop by, talk about her new podcast, The Offensive Line, over at Wondery, and the return of our friend Charlotte Wilder for a Wilder Wednesday on a Tuesday in the second hour. So fired up for that. We'll hear how Jesse survived 2 weddings this weekend as well. And spoiler alert, kids are the ultimate humbling denominator in this conversation. But, Dad, speaking of humbling, man, the fall from grace has been fast and precipitous for the Florida State Seminoles. They get beat last night by Jesse's BC Golden Eagles. And Dad fall to 0-2 now after a season where they finished the regular season undefeated. They were notably snubbed from the college football playoff. They spent the whole offseason banging on pots and pans. They're part of a tandem that's suing the ACC right now, and Mike Norvell has to be searching for answers that, Dad, I just don't know are there with this Florida State team that is a great amalgamation of talent once again, but does not seem to have a cohesive roster in a lot of places that you need to. So what was your biggest takeaway from last night as BC now in the Bill O'Brien era, as he takes over there, gets the win that they can plant their flag on and start to build this program back up with?
Well, in the new era we're in college football, where you build a lot of your team at times through the portal, depending on your season and who you lose. And we talked about how they lost guys to the draft, but rebuilt with the portal. We talk about, and it's not coming to fruition, but a team like Miami, who lived through the portal it is coming to fruition. You could look at quarterbacks there, Cam Ward to DJ Ungalalele, and how DJ is just he's not the answer. I mean, it's kind of like the expectation to improve, kind of like Cade Klubnik from Clemson, and DJ kind of is what he is. Klubnik is what he is. But that's really, you'd like a better quarterback. But to me, the fact that they're getting handled on the lines of scrimmage, that's the surprising part to me. They're getting handled on the O-line. They're getting handled on the D-line. They have given up 453 yards rushing in their first 2 games. And they have 119 yards rushing in their first 2 games, just 21 against BC. So the O-line's not getting it done, the D-line's not getting it done, and the quarterback's not helping the situation.
Completely agree. That was the most stunning part to me. We came into this season talking about the transfer portal talent they had on the defensive line, one of the most talented in the conference, if not the most talented in a lot. And like that wasn't just like the hive mind taking over. This was draft folks looking in on this team, obviously folks that pay attention to the portal, and then an offensive line that was a Joe Moore Award semifinalist last year, had I think 190 plus returning starts on it. We know Alex Atkins serving that suspension right now early in the season, but damn, and I get it too. Beginning of the season, Georgia Tech, new defensive coordinator and Tyler Santucci there, and gave them looks they might not have been prepared for. Whole new staff for Bill O'Brien and company. For a BC team that, lest we not forget, only lost by 2 points to this team last year in Florida State.
Right.
When Florida State was humming, last year we all kind of had that week where we just went, oh, well, that's probably nothing. That's probably a one-off there. But it was the same quarterback in Thomas Castellanos. And by the way, Dad, a team, this is not a normal like BC teardown where Bill O'Brien inherited some 2 or 3 win team. BC went to a bowl game last year and won. BC was a 7-win football team whose head coach and Jeff Hafley just happened to take an NFL coordinator job with the Green Bay Packers. So it's this combination of events that we probably all should have been more aware of in hindsight, where when you take over a group and a program that's got an offensive line that's better than most places, and for BC, the cupboard wasn't totally bare there, and has a quarterback coming back who's got a particular set of skills. And last season, Thomas Castellanos was a 2,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rusher, and didn't really have to play outside of himself last night, Dad. I think when you look at that stat line from him, 10 of 16 for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns, 14 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown on the ground. It was the proper amount of dual threat, but there was no maverick stuff in here. It was him operating within the confines of Bill O'Brien's offense that did a great job of playing with sideline to sideline, using motion, using misdirection plays at times, and then just hammering Florida State right down State Street over and over and over again, to the point where in the first quarter, which did not have a working clock for the entire time, which was awesome, Boston College essentially possessed the ball for about 14 and a half minutes of that 15-minute quarter.
Yeah, I mean, they and it just shows Castellanos last year had way more yards, threw for 305 yards, ran for 95 yards in the 2.3129 loss to Florida State. Now, he was efficient, 10 of 16, as you mentioned. He rushed for 73 yards, but they didn't have to rely on him. They have other parts in a not stunning Bill O'Brien team. You're tough on the lines of scrimmage, something he is definitely known for. And they showed that, and they showed they're a more complete team. And you're right. I mean, it was a bowl team last year. I don't know whether to, and we're gonna focus on the Florida State failure because we picked them, and many people picked them to win the ACC, and here they are 0-2 in their conference, 0-2 on the season. Now, Mike Norvell has lost a couple in a row a few times and then gone on to string together 5 or 6 wins. We'll see if that happens. I just don't know if they're going to get the productivity at quarterback. But more importantly, as we are both talking about, you talk about the unsexy part of a football game, and that's controlling the lines of scrimmage. And they're now not only 0-2 in their record, but 0-2 in controlling either line of scrimmage.
Yeah, there's no identity for the offense right now. And I think that's been the strange part, is how they've tried to go about augmenting the fact that they don't trust their quarterback to throw deep. because that's allowed other teams. So far, Georgia Tech and Boston College have come in these matchups and dictated the terms. They've decided, hey, we're going to blitz early, we're going to light DJ up, and we're going to dare them to throw over the top of us. And when they won't accept that dare, now we live in their heads. Now we can do all of the all-up, drop-off, and play coverage stuff that BC did later on in that game. You had great individual performances. Donovan Ezeraku, their edge player there, probably made himself some NFL draft money last night with that performance he had, showing up in the backfield a few times on big plays there. On the other side, Treshaun Ward, the former Florida State running back, now over at Boston College, had 138 total yards and a nice revenge game there. And Dad, you looked at that Florida State offense, and they don't know who they are at this point. And they're going to have to make that decision quick of, hey, how much of DJ's pride are we going to try and salvage? Because I feel for DJ, right? This is a guy that we saw at Clemson go through what looked like a bout of the yips. He went out to Oregon State for a year, and I think largely got left alone because Oregon State's not a program people are wired to pay attention to. And now he's back at a team that's the focus of a lot of college football's world for a lot of reasons coming off last year that have nothing to do with him. And it seems like once again, he's just not ready. I mean, there were layups last night, Dad. That corner route in the end zone when they were down in the red zone, just completely airmailed a wide open ball that a quarterback that's played as much football as DJ should be able to hit. So I feel for him because right now this just seems like a guy whose confidence is shot. And I don't know how you go about rebuilding that in a stadium full of cheers for the backup quarterback that got uncomfortably loud.
Yeah, he's a guy that has all the physical tools, so he keeps getting a chance to kind of restart or re-engage his career. You talked about Ward, though, really quick. As I mentioned, 138 yards against his former team. And Florida State, for as bad as it looked in the third quarter, was down 13-6, and they were driving, and they went for it on 4th and 5 on their own 47-yard line. And Ungalale throws that just horrible 4th down pass, got a little pressure and knew he just had to throw the ball because it was 4th down, just lofted a Pop-Tart out there and was picked off by Max Tucker, who ran it back like 57, 58 yards to I think the 7-yard line or something like that. And BC scores from there. And instead of Florida State, at least if nothing else, maybe getting a field goal, making it 13-9, or maybe, God forbid, tying it up, they're now down, 21-6. So, I mean, that was a big turning point for a game, even though they weren't in it, were in it by score, were one score away, and then just an ill-advised pass. DJ, you're right. He just is not accurate. He's just, for getting completion percentage, just where he puts the ball is just not accurate at all.
There's just no continuity between him and the receiver room either. Like, they're not on the same page. It wasn't like it was totally his fault either. They had a bunch of bad drops last night, especially from the tight end room, that didn't help the situation. But you're right, Dad. And again, I want to credit Boston College. This is a roster I was already curious about. Bill O'Brien is a coach who has won at this level and knows what he's doing. Comes from the NFL level where he's also going to hunt matchups. Like, they saw, hey, Florida State's going to play man coverage and try and put their linebackers who can't run with our running backs on them. So what are we going to do? We're going to run tight end leak and we're going to run wheel routes until they tap out. And that's exactly what they did. They found the matchup they wanted and they hunted it, which is much more NFL than it is college. But that team was tough along the lines of scrimmage and mentally tough, Dad. This is not, this wasn't a team that was totally in the doldrums last year. I don't make it out to be like he inherited some group that doesn't know how to win. They went to a bowl game and won last year. They've done that. But on the other side of it, there was that moment where they got that big play on 4th down. And then in the second half, Florida State pulled it within a score in the third quarter. And BC responded by driving the ball all the way down the field, aided by a Florida State penalty, but drove it all the way back down the field, rammed it down their throats, and went up again. So lots for that Boston College program to be proud about. Very curious for them and Georgia Tech. You got marquee wins at the beginning of the season against a Florida State team that we're realizing now is not as good as it was billed to be going to start this season. Now, what are they going to make their seasons out of with this newfound information? Because handling success is going to be that thing those coaching staffs preach all week long.
And then we look at how good can Georgia Tech and BC be, because we had so much hope for Florida State and they're not living up. As far as Boston College, in a couple of weeks, they play Missouri. That's going to be a hell of a test, no doubt about it. They have Virginia Tech, which did lose their first game. They have Louisville. They finish up with Pitt. So now we're starting to ask, what the teams that beat Florida State are going to look like. I don't know if the expectation is very high. It was more high on Florida State. Now it's kind of scratching your head as Mike Norvell basically has taken responsibility for the program and for the losses.
You know who else needs to take some responsibility right now? At 321 Noel. So for anyone that's not powerfully online and didn't see this saga last night, what had happened was at 321 Noel had gone on August 27th on God's internet and said, if Florida State loses to BC this weekend, I will eat dog bleep out of a red Solo cup with a spoon and post a video of me doing it. Book it. Well, as you would imagine, the internet saw this and made sure he saw this early and often during this game. And now this man has basically deleted all of his social media. I think one of the guys from Barstool tracked down his Snapchat and is trying to message him there. You can't put this out on the internet in 2024 and expect to not pay the piper when it comes. You got to take a little bite of that poop. This is full Step Brothers where you got to go and lick that white dog turd, brother.
Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, he has to because he put it on the internet and now everyone's going after him. But I feel like faced with this, I would just capitulate and be like, I can't do it. I'm soft.
I mean, listen, it's a gross thing. It's horrifically gross, but don't type the words. Don't hit send. You know what? And this isn't the first time somebody said, oh, if they lose, I'll walk across a bridge or I'll walk 1,000 miles, and then they don't do it.
Oh.
You know, you sit there and you type a big game. You know what? You show your keyboard muscles and type a big game, and then you don't back it up. And then you delete all your social media. I mean, the bottom line is, dude, at 321 no, you're going to get tracked down. You are going to get tracked down. There is no doubt about it.
Senior, are you saying that men on the internet don't mean what they're typing when they say it? You mean that they are filled with this bravado and they say things and then they don't mean it? Like when they say men.
Shockingly enough, I thought everybody told the truth on Twitter. I thought everybody was. I obviously was fooled.
Yeah, we were hoodwinked.
I was. You know what? You know what? Speaking of fooled, Dad, that's a good place to go to for the final note of this weekend. So now we have finally officially wrapped up week 1 of college football season, and we saw some big-time moments, big-time wins, go Irish go, and some also teams falling flat on their face through the first couple of weeks. So, Dad, who had the worst week 1 of all this group? Was it Florida State last night? Did they round that off? Was it Florida, Texas A&M losing to Notre Dame, LSU losing in the primetime stage on Sunday night? Who actually had the toughest opening start to college football?
Oh, I think it's without question Florida State, just because what was put on them. We all, I mean, the high majority of people picked them to win the ACC, if not to be in the playoffs. And they're 0-2 and 0-2 in the conference. 2 conference games they started with, and they're 0-2. So I think, you know, at least LSU played another blue blood in USC, but even though they lose, Virginia Tech losing to Vanderbilt. You know, that was a big game for Vanderbilt, tough loss for Virginia Tech. But I have to say, and Texas A&M, I know they were favored in the game, but it's not like they were favored by double digits like Florida State was favored by 16, to which I cashed it yesterday in a ridiculous move by me. I think it's definitely Florida State, without question.
I actually lean Florida just because Florida State got to enjoy last season. They were good the last couple of years. And to me, falls under the it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all type situation. Like, at least Florida State got to go on the run. They can always point to last year and say that we were robbed and slighted and who knows what could have happened, even though we know without Jordan Travis what would have happened had they got to the Final Four. And that's okay. That's not what that was about. They should have still been in. But I digress. For Florida, man, getting clubbed like that by one of your in-state, like I get, rival, I don't know how much that really is, like we talked to Andy Staples about, but getting clubbed by another one of the teams in-state that you are actively competing with for recruits and popularity in that way, and then having them embarrass you walking off the field, hollering at your recruits, all this stuff. I don't know, man. Florida, that one was tough for me, and for Billy Napier, who really hasn't been able to ever get that plane off the ground.
Yeah, I guess why I go Florida State is Florida wasn't expected to make the playoffs or expected to compete in the SEC.
Sure.
Florida State was expected to win the ACC and represent as one of the 12 teams in the playoff, and they're already done. 2 weeks in, 2 games in, they're done. I mean, that used to be the old 4-team method when you lost that game, though losing early was better than losing late. Like if you lost one, you were on the precipice because never a two-loss team had gotten into the Final Four, but we've had a 1-loss team, and now you lose your opening 2. And now you're done in a 12-team playoff. I just think that's just a rough road.
Yeah, it's one of those things for Florida State, and I'd have to look at their schedule right now to see with 100% certainty. Because, like, in my mind, yes, like, I can no longer. They were my pick to win the ACC at the beginning of the year, and if you gave me a do-over token right now, I would 10 out of 10 times take Miami to win it now. It seems very clear that they're going to be the only team with the offensive firepower to do this. But if you look at Florida State's schedule, they do play Clemson and they do play Miami. So you're going to have an opportunity to still have access to the ACC championship, I'd imagine, if you beat those couple of teams, unless BC and Georgia Tech go and wear this thing out. But based on what we've seen football-wise, Dad, I think that probably is not going to be the case. So if I had the do-over, you look at it right now through 1 week, and you'd feel pretty comfortable taking Miami. I understand that's caked in recency bias, and I actually disagree with the Cade Klubnik point you made earlier with Clemson. He only started 1 season last year. There is potential for growth, especially at a place like Clemson that does do that. But right now, Miami has come in, boiled all those things together quickly, and now seems to finally have the roster that they've been talking about for the last couple of seasons since Cristobal got there that's ready to rock.
And then you look at the SEC, 3 of the teams who played actual blue bloods, Florida, LSU, and Texas A&M, all lost, playing Notre Dame, playing USC, and playing Miami.
Well, one of the teams in the SEC who didn't lose this weekend was the Missouri Tigers. They managed to go out and get the job done. Now, it was not against a Power 4 opponent, but there's plenty of time coming for that for a veteran team who got burst onto the scene in a big way last year, earned a lot of people's respect, and is trying to maintain that standard now. So, coming up next, as we look ahead from week 1 towards week 2, we talk to Missouri head football coach ELI DRINKWITZ next on GoJo and Golic. and rolling along here. Kind enough to join us right now is Missouri head football coach Eli Drinkwitz, 1-0 after week 1. So, Coach, congratulations. How's your Victory Monday going so far?
Man, so far so good. Working on a Labor Day with a victory. It doesn't get much better than that.
But I have to wonder now. Mike and I have both been through this as players. When you get a nice win, you beat Murray State 51-0, and players go into the film session thinking, "Oh, this is going to be great." And that's when coaches choose to coach really hard and make the players almost feel like they lost. Is that what you guys went through?
Well, sort of. We always chase the joy of winning. I think winning is really hard, and you play to win the game, right? And so you got to celebrate the victories. Whether you felt like you could have played much better or you played as good as you possibly can, you got to go in and celebrate. The challenge is, how do you keep your guys motivated? And there was plenty of stuff on tape for us to say, hey, we didn't quite play to the standard that we wanted to play. So I don't think it was like we were trying to make stuff up or be overly critical. I think it was just, hey guys, this is the standard that we have to play to. And y'all been around football a ton. Everybody has the old adage, you get better from week 1 to week 2, more than any other week. But for us, really, the month of September is about eliminating bad football. And we had bad football on tape. And so I think that was the key for us is, guys, we got to eliminate bad football. Coach Belichick says it all the time. Before you win a championship, you first must not beat yourself. And so that was really the focus for us is how do we eliminate the stuff that's going to get ourselves beat?
What do you think the key is, Coach, for you guys this year and be able to repeat the success that you had last season where now you're not sneaking up on anybody out here? You're one of the contenders in this conference, one of the 2 best conferences in college football. So what do you guys need to do to maintain the standard that you've set for this program?
Well, I think after watching the tape, offensively, we weren't as explosive in the pass game as we're going to need to be. We left several vertical balls short and just didn't complete them the way we wanted to. And then special teams, I think really for the past 3 years, we've tried to maintain balance on special teams, don't win or lose us the game. But now you're going to have to transition to winning that phase. And so for us, I think there were some things on special teams that we left out that we can be much better at. Defensively, they played probably as well as you could have hoped for. I mean, held their opponent to under 100 yards, produced 3 takeaways, so to speak, with fourth down stops. So they played really well. The challenge is, can you duplicate that? Are you a Milli Vanilli, the one-hit wonder, or can you have sustained excellence?
Nice reference. With no preseason games, how long, and I know it can vary in years, but how long into a season does it take for you to get the team that you think you're going to have?
Yeah, honestly, I think it almost takes the entire month of September to really find your identity, figure out what your strengths are, eliminate bad football, get the cohesiveness that you want, both as an offensive line and a defensive unit, being consistent as a special teams play. For me, it's all about the month of September, really finding your identity. And then you get into October, play into your strengths. November, really growing as a football team. And then hopefully when you get to the playoffs, if you're fortunate enough to be in them, you really figure out who you are and win situational football. To me, the formula is no different than really what you see in the NFL. Eliminate bad football, figure out your identity, play to those strengths, and then everything in the NFL and the playoffs all come down to situational football and who's going to be the better team in those, crucial moments.
You mentioned that as one of the big differences this year, the playoff now expanding to 12 teams. Does it change any of the energy around the program, understanding there's more opportunities now to be involved in the championship event, whereas before it felt maybe a little more closed off?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the first of the year, everybody's pursuing a championship. We have a saying that Coach Chiswick used to say, never settle for second while first is still out there. So I think everybody's involved in that conversation right now. I think what you're going to see is when it's October and November, when maybe you're not in the conference race, as we, in the past, you still got your eyes on a prize and fan bases can still really be engaged. I think, even the disappointments with some teams in week 1 with their losses, they realize that it's a long season. And if you just go back to work, you're still going to be involved in the chase that you want to be involved in. So we all understand social media has hot takes and the world's on fire after one game. I think hopefully there'll be a little bit more reality as teams battle throughout the year.
Hot takes. Come on, coach. We don't know what you're talking about. How did one of the changes this year in college football is the communication in the quarterback's helmet, and a lot of people would just think on face value, oh, that has to be so much easier. Is it easier, and how was the transition?
I mean, just like anything, it's got good and bad. I mean, we had a critical screw up right before half where our quarterback, which you hope every quarterback gets to, but it takes a while. And now it's just focusing on the fundamentals to execute. There was several plays, like as soon as he throws the ball, he's ready to go celebrate because he thinks he's made the right decision. He's made the right read, but now he just didn't quite execute the throw the way we want him to. So, I'm really glad that we had some of those things show up on tape because, yesterday it was Victory Sunday and we're having victory dinner, and I look out on the field and Brady's got the wide receivers out there and they're throwing routes because he's ticked off that he missed some open throws. And so, really proud of his dedication. And so having a little bit left out there for us to prove is always a good thing.
And on the outside, people looking in thinking a 51-0 win, there's everything went right. But I'm sure you had expectations of certain, position groups on the field. Was there one that surprised you to the good or even to the bad after week one?
Yeah, honestly, I was really proud of the defensive side of the ball. Our secondary, we're having to replace 3 NFL players, 2 corners that are on, that were drafted, and a safety that was drafted. And so for us to come out at the corner position, have a pick 6, play really physical at the line of scrimmage, I thought that was really good. I thought our linebackers were replacing 2 starters, one of them drafted starting for the Green Bay Packers. I thought they played really fast, very physical downhill. So overall, I was really pleased with the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, we had 2 transfer running backs come in. Both of them scored touchdowns. I think our offensive line did a really nice job controlling the line of scrimmage. So was pleased with that.
Well, Coach, you guys have managed to avoid the rat poison through week 1 that Coach Saban provided you the other day on McAfee's show there. I saw you got around that one nicely as you look out towards the rest of the season. So hopefully you guys can continue to do that, build on all these areas. I know we're excited to watch what you guys have in store for 2024 that got off to a 1-0 start this weekend. So congratulations on the great start, Coach. We appreciate the time. Enjoy the rest of your Labor Day, hopefully with a lot less labor.
Well, I appreciate y'all. I knew y'all would have me on because, the Golden Domers beat an SEC team, and I knew y'all wanted to rub that into the SEC coaches. So, it's your day. Congratulations. And, hopefully y'all enjoy this big moment that y'all are having right now.
Couldn't get away without mentioning that, which I feel like, all things considered, Dad, we have handled this victory with remarkable class and grace as a fan base and as a show that definitely roots for this team.
I agree. It was only one game, but it was a big game. No doubt it was a big game going down to Kyle Field at Texas A&M and pulling off the win in the heat. But yeah, I think we have been pretty reserved. Act like we've been there before, right? I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, I think with me, it's also probably fear that the other shoe could drop at some point. And now all of a sudden be like, like we found out with Florida State, man, winning consistently in college football is really, really hard. I think I saw Parker Stats of War on Twitter mention it's like Nick Saban probably threw us off with what's actually possible and realistic in terms of that sustained success. And so I have a healthy appreciation for how difficult that is. And Florida State finding that out the hard way. But Missouri, who knows? They've got potential still right now. 1-0 to start the season. You didn't even get a monster Luther Burden game in this one, so the best days for him. One of the top receivers in the sport, still out ahead of him here. Coming up next, though, let's head to the NFL. Big news, courtesy of an Instagram story about one of the most important players heading into the season, maybe finally coming home. Next on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We got an update on Ricky Pearsall's situation. So Sunday he was released from the hospital after that injury where he was shot in the chest during an attempted robbery. So the 49ers placed him on the reserve/non-football injury list yesterday. So he's going to miss at least the first 4 games of his rookie season as he recovers. But guys, just incredibly lucky. His mom had posted basically saying that, you know, he was shot and it went through his chest, missed any vital organs. So, I mean, he's on the road to recovery. Seems to be going about as well as we could possibly hope for him.
Yep, Dad, we said it yesterday. This is a story that is much more about that good news of, hey, this player who was on the cusp of living out his dream all of a sudden almost had that taken away in horrific and tragic fashion and avoids that absolute worst case scenario. So now you get that roster update, but really it's just a reminder that, hey, the football secondary right now, they're going to let Ricky get back to absolutely 100%, and then they can figure out what that part of his looks like as he gets more comfortable with that after, I'm sure, which was an incredibly harrowing experience.
Yeah, I mean, he's at an autograph session. It's after. He's down by Union Square, and it's in daylight. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. All of a sudden, he's fighting a guy who's got a gun and trying to rob him. I mean, and he basically walked to the ambulance and was out less than 24 hours later. You were like, I'm being shot in the chest. Of how lucky that you are. So missing the first 4 games is nothing compared to the fact that this guy is alive and doing well.
No, 100%. So we wish him well and a speedy recovery from this situation. We're glad that he is absolutely okay. That is a non-football story that just happens to be connected to a football team. Dad, while we're talking about the 49ers, this is very much a football story that very much is going to affect their team on the field very soon. Trent Williams, according to his agents at Elite Loyalty Sports, have announced that Trent Williams is on his way back to San Francisco to finalize a new deal with the 49ers. He had been holding out in Houston during the entirety of this offseason and training camp, seeking a new deal, and now it appears that he is going to get just that. So, Dad, a huge sigh of relief for everyone in 49er land as they head into week 1, that they get arguably the best left tackle in pro football back on their roster for this important season.
That's pro doing pro things right there, right? Getting paid more money and not doing an ounce of training camp or an ounce of work, ounce of on-field teamwork. Just prepping on his own at 36 years old, the best left tackle in the league, just going to step right onto the field and get more money and play right away. Vet move, my friend. Congratulations.
So just as an update, and this is according to Spot Track, Trent Williams' current contract has cash payouts in the next 3 years, including this season, of just under $21 million, $23.3 million in 2025, and then was scheduled for $33 million in 2026. But we know a lot of this was about the guaranteed language left on that contract right now. As you had seen, plenty of other deals. Andrew Thomas, $67 million fully guaranteed. Laramie Tunsil up at 50. Christian Darrisaw, who we talked to the other day on this show, all now also making an average per year, the highest paid being Darrisaw, just at $26 million. So, Dad, Trent Williams looking out of the market and saying, hey, I know what it's like to see my health be in jeopardy. I certainly know what it's like to jump teams, and I've made enough money to where I'm not going to play around with this. I believe I'm the best. I should be paid like the best, and you guys are going to do it, or else you're going to have a very bad time trying to protect your quarterback in a contract year.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't get to this point with Zach Martin. He didn't sit out this long, but Zach Martin got himself some extra guaranteed money last year in the beginning part of training camp when he held out. And Trent Williams doing the same thing, and it happens all the way to go to week 1 of the season. And he's, by the way, he's on a private plane flying to San Francisco with his dog. So that's what a great companion, just flying with your dog. And on a quick aside, you know, at ESPN, Kirk Herbstreit calls the games, and he brings his dog to the games. And his dog was actually in the open for their game on I think it was Sunday night. And I can't believe there are people that have a hard time with it. The dog should stay at home. The dog. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that people would criticize Herbie for bringing a dog on the road.
I think that's a lot of people who just like might have, again, Kirk Herbstreit's one of the biggest broadcasters in the sport on College game day. Obviously, he drew the ire of Florida State fans at the end of last season. So I have a feeling that's about things that aren't related to the dog all of a sudden popping up on Herbie's doorstep. Because you're right, objectively cute dog, objectively a thing we love, dogs in places that they're not supposed to be. It's cheeky, it's fun, it's cute, just plopping himself down in there, making himself at home in the booth. So yeah, no, his dog's name's Ben, right?
Ben, yeah.
It's
Good
Ben?
boy. What a good boy.
Ben?
Yeah, it's Ben.
Okay.
Ben, yeah.
It's why? Well, you say that like it's wrong. What's wrong with dogs having normal human names?
I think it's weird. I think dogs should have names that are like funny or for dogs, like spaghetti.
Jesse, you realize literally all of our dogs have human names.
Yeah, I think that's weird of you guys.
You think it's weird? We have Hank, Harry, and Ted. And
Yeah.
you think we're weird?
Yeah, I think it's weird to be
And Dorothy
like,
and Earl.
Yeah,
and,
that's
well, Chip is like a kind of a fun cutesy dog name.
Yeah,
so
it's
Jake
kind of a
and Jenny
dog
win
name.
that
And
one.
Jet, yeah.
Yeah, you guys are weird. It's weird that you do that.
Wow.
Oh, it's fun.
Wow.
But it's fun because they have smushy faces, and because my sister's bulldog Earl kind of looks like my late grandfather Ken, who we talked about the other day, who called and found out that my dad made the Houston Oilers by impersonating a reporter. So they have oddly human faces because they're all smushed up and thus deserve oddly human names.
I just think it's weird that you're at the dog park and you're like, come here, Ben. Ben, sit down, Ben. Like, Earl. I don't know. I think it's weird. To each their own. I grew up in a family where all the pets had weird names, and that's just how we did it.
What were the names?
Our dog was Runner, because you let a bunch of 10-year-olds name the dog, and it's going to be Runner. And then our cat was Trouble, because we could say, here comes Trouble.
Treble or trouble?
Trouble.
Trouble.
All right.
Yeah.
And then you could say later on,
that's
I knew
fine.
you were
You know
trouble
what?
when you walked in, based on the paws and the tail. Yeah, so that right there.
Those
worth
are
its weight.
wonderful names. I can't think of there being a bad name for a pet. I mean, you name your pet what you want. I don't want to think it's weird, but Jesse just out here calling us weird.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Just got to judge people. I judge you a little bit for it, but I still love you.
Jesse's not herself this morning. She had 3 drinks at a wedding on Sunday, and her kids decide. We're going to get to it later on. We got to decompress a lot of this here. This did give me time to look up, though, for the 49ers and Trent Williams. Again, a reminder, there was no guaranteed money left on his contract. So in addition to all those figures where a few guys had passed him in terms of the amount guaranteed or the average per year, Trent Williams also not being guaranteed money doesn't seem like a thing that someone named Trent Williams should show up for. And now Harry the Pug is in the front. Jesse, I want you to look him in his face and tell him his name's stupid. I want you to do it to him.
Tell him his name's stupid.
Hey, Harry, your face and your name are stupid.
Whoa!
But I do love you. He's got a stupid
Wow.
face. He's a pug.
He's got a lovely face with a little salt and
He's
pepper
got
in
a
it.
lovely face.
You guys, pugs,
sweet
the
meow.
point of breeding pugs, do you know how they started breeding pugs? They were like, this one has a messed up face. Let's make it have a baby with another one that has a messed up face so we can keep making more messed up faces. I love his face. I want to smooch it, but he was bred to be weird looking. That's just a fact.
He's cute as, oh my God. He's so cute.
He's so cute and weird looking.
Oh.
Well, now you're hurting his feelings, and now if he falls into depression now, it's your fault. So I hope you feel good about yourself, you monster.
God he can't speak English, okay?
Again,
We don't know that.
He can't speak English. We don't know if he can't hear English. That is still
That's
something
exactly
that
right.
remains to be seen. So now we've got to worry about that and the potential dog therapy bill on our way. But the 49ers, they just have to worry about their new bill for Trent Williams coming back, which, Dad, unlocks the whole roster. We talked about it all offseason. It took forever, kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. The 49ers decided to let everything go down to the last moment. But it ends with Brandon Ayuk back, their star wide receiver, which I know the Ricky Pearsall situation is separate, but that was a guy brought in there to supplement the receiving core you're now not going to have the services of. And, oh, by the way, your quarterback's a little bit smaller, not super mobile, probably good to have the good blocker out there.
You could tell Trent Williams just wanted some guaranteed money and was going to get it. And Brandon Ayuk did not want to go to another team. He absolutely did not want to go to another team. Everything was to leverage a deal with the 49ers.
Yep, and deals they got now. So the 49ers issues assuaged heading into the start of the season. We can talk about those effects overall as we look ahead to the 2024 season in the next hour. Coming up next, though, Annie Agar going to stop by and talk to us about her new podcast next on GoJo and Golic. right, heading into week 1 of the NFL. Excited to talk some ball with our friend Annie Agar. You guys can check out her new podcast, The Offensive Line with Annie Agar, on Wondery. It's a great podcast. She's an NFL correspondent at Stadium Network and the host of this show. You can check it out on YouTube, listen on the Wondery app, or wherever you get your podcast. So, Annie, I guess first and foremost, congratulations on the new show. Obviously, people are very used to you from social media over the years, the uncomfortable team meeting. So exciting now to see that translate into the podcast. How you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, it's a fun way, as you guys know, to have a conversation that's a little bit more friendly conversation instead of just me roasting teams. So hopefully it'll be kind of an elaboration on the videos and we can go a little bit more in depth about why I roast them the way that I do.
So the podcast, The Offensive Line, is there going to be offensive linemen involved in the offensive line?
That is true. I mean, you're
like
kind of appropriating our culture here, Annie.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. Yes, it is. So it's a play on words, obviously. There will be a focus on offensive linemen, but also we have a little betting angle to it. So offensive line, we're going to go over like an egregious line that isn't that clever? I would love to say that I fully came up with it, but it was a team effort. It was a team effort. So yeah. And then obviously I offend people sometimes. So there'll be an offensive line in there once or twice. So yeah, it was a fun little triple play on word there meeting thing. And we're going to have, the focus will be O-line guys, because as we all know, they need some love too. But yeah, we thought it's a fun way to make it a little less offensive. And there's a segment on there called No Offense, because obviously everybody knows when you say no offense, you're not being offensive at all. So it's great.
Exactly. Everything after that is free and in the clear there.
Game.
I am curious, though. You mentioned that sometimes people have taken umbrage with the things that you've said in some of these videos, and it's not like you're a person that just stays away, 30,000 foot view away from the microphone. I see you out. You're in public all the time around these players, these coaches, these teams. So have you ever had someone kind of come and check you after something you've said when they see you in person?
That's probably the coolest part, is these guys are so great. I walk a fine line with hopefully showing them that, man, I respect the hell out of them. But hey, if you drop a pass in the Super Bowl, like, I'm going to make a joke about it. And the only, I hate the Bears. Everybody knows this. I'm very open about my hatred for the Bears. And I did a Madden. I think we met at one of the Super Bowls. I saw you guys, we're always at the Super Bowls, but I was at one of the Super Bowls. I think it was 2 Super Bowls ago, and I did a Madden gaming house with Jamar Chase and Justin Fields, and I sat, and I know they did this on purpose. They didn't tell me Justin was going to be there, and they sat me between the two guys. Jamar goes, "Hey, what's up?" I'm Jamar Chase. I'm like, well, first of all, I know who you are. Help me out in fantasy. Loved it. Thank you. And then I look over at Justin, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Annie Agar," and he goes, "I know who you are." And I'm like, first of all, very cool that you know who I am, that I even exist to you. Second of all, I'm so sorry for anything and everything that I said. He's like, "Nah, we're good. Like, I respect it." They're just so cool about it. But it was a bit of, they're at such a distance where it's okay to make fun of them. And I think, well, they're just, they're never going to see this. And then when they actually acknowledge my existence, I'm like, oh, wow, maybe I should be a little careful with making fun of Justin next year. But it will not stop me. I will still do it. So.
Yeah, it just goes to show any player that says, I don't listen to or hear the media, they always listen and hear everything that's said. How long does it, because those things, I love watching them. How long do they take to make?
It's a process. I researched for about 7 hours on Monday because I could make any joke that I want about the franchise or about what happened that weekend, but I want to make these inside references that only fans of that team will, remember the draft pick that screwed up their season 20 years ago. I want to make those niche references. So I'll research the heck out of something just to make sure I get all those jokes in there. And I kind of, I see what people are talking about during the games, what different fan bases are referring to. And so it's a lot of research. And then to actually shoot the videos, like 3 or 4 hours. And then editing is a whole other process. I think I start editing at like 3 a.m. on Tuesday morning to try and get it out by noon. And now with this podcast, we shoot it on Tuesdays, gets out Wednesday, to make sure we're, coming off the games as quickly as possible. So it's going to be a fun year. I haven't really figured out how I'm going to sleep yet, but that's okay. So you can sleep after football season. Everything's fine.
Well, and you mentioned like part of the podcast is looking at betting lines, looking at some of the things that are the actual tangible parts of the game. And we always talk about, as a former O&D lineman, we watch a lot of the trenches when we're watching the game. Former quarterbacks see it through that eyes. You're someone who's watched the game through the lens of where is the funny thing at times involved in this. So does this change the way that you watch the games at all heading into the fall now?
That's a great question. I always, and if you look at my betting slips, you will know I am not here to give you guys advice on what to do because I'm a degenerate just like everybody else. And I always go from that angle because I've never played the game. Like you guys, having you guys on my podcast and having these former players on the podcast, you guys give me such a great angle on things because you'll have stories from the locker rooms, you'll have actual breakdowns of what's happening on the field that I will never understand because I was never in that position. So the one thing I can add, hopefully, is this spin on it where I'm a fan just like everybody else that I'm appealing to. So hopefully it's like bridging that gap a little bit between the player and the fan and saying, hey, like, I can roast these guys on a platform where everyone else is saying the same thing in their league group chat, but they're not, it's not getting out there in a video. So I can't give any analysis to the level that anybody else can. So I just roast people and hopefully make light of a bad game or a bad team and make the fans feel a little bit more understood.
As far as one of the meanings of offensive line, the gambling line, how surprised are you at how quickly gambling has taken over in pro sports?
It's incredible. And this probably, maybe for you and I, Mike, it's a little bit more like it's like a natural thing because I kind of grew up with it. Like we were quiet about it, but we had, bookies and we were sports betting the entire time we were growing up. But for like my dad, he can't believe it. And my grandpa, who was a big, would go to the casinos all the time, cannot believe how you go to ESPN, like the ESPN app, the lines are right, the spread is right under the game. And he couldn't, it was wild to him to think that that's okay. And so it's very different for, I'm sure, you guys to see it. I'm amazed at how quickly it took over, but I'm also not because it's such a huge part of it. I'm a little more concerned about the players and partaking in it as well. But for us, I think it's just such a natural thing because maybe we grew up with it a little bit more. But I am shocked at how quickly it took off the way that it has.
It certainly changed some of the conversation around the sport, but a lot of it's still going to be the same as always. So as we are heading into week 1 now, Annie, and you look at this whole array of teams that either are going to get roasted or going to watch their dreams come true this season, who are you most keeping your eye on team-wise heading into 2024?
This might seem shocking, and it's almost ironic that I'm wearing an Eagles sweatshirt right now. I have said, even after the John Dotson situation, Washington, I'm so high on Washington this year. And I said, don't quote me on this, but I said they might win the division. If the Eagles fall apart again, which I don't know if Sirianni and Jalen, I don't know if they figured out their stuff, but I love Jaden Daniels. I think he might be the best quarterback coming out of that draft class. I love their whole setup. It's a totally new organization. I made so much fun of Washington last year. New coach, new OC, new owner, like everything is new other than they're just fix your field and then they'll be a completely different organization. But I'm very high on them and I think they might make the playoffs, possibly win the division. I don't know. But Washington's my little sleeper team this year.
All right, Washington is a sleeper there, which I'm a lot of happy Commanders fan has kind of been an oxymoron for a long time. So for that to actually be a potential reality for them is very exciting coming up there. I'll ask one more, Annie, in that regard. You mentioned all the players you've talked to, been around and met. As you now venture into this fall doing the podcast, is there someone that you've most looked forward to or want to talk to on the show that you maybe haven't yet?
Oh, that's a great question. Any Packers guys? I met Josh Jacobs for the first time this offseason and Jordan Love. And man, if I could get those guys on the podcast, I think it would just be an hour of me just talking them up the whole time. They wouldn't even have to say a word. I'd just be like, you guys are the best. You're going to win a Super Bowl this year. It's going to be great. Jordan Love might win MVP. But other than that, Aaron Rodgers, just because I just roast the hell out of him. And man, would it be fun to do it in person. So he probably would never agree to it. But, I don't know. We can make it like a cave setting. I can put some incense in the air. Maybe that'll convince him to come on the pod.
There we go. You know what? You've put it out into the universe now. And as we know, Aaron is listening and hearing and reading signs from the universe.
Yes.
We'll see if that pops up onto his radar anytime soon or onto your podcast. Again, people can check out The Offensive Line with Annie Agar. It is coming up wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube, the Wondery app. It's going to be great stuff this season, in addition to all the NFL work over at the Stadium Network as well. Annie, thanks so much for the time. Best of luck with the podcast. Hopefully you find some time to sleep this fall.
Thank you guys so much. You too. Hopefully you guys do too.
Yeah. right, hour number 2 here of GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield. We will get to all of our NFL awards predictions for the 2024 season. We're going to give you everything, starting from MVP, going all the way down to Coach of the Year, Defensive and Offensive Rookie of the Years. You name it, we're going to tell you who's going to win it and where you can get them on DraftKings Sportsbook. But before we do that, it's been a little while. So let's clear out some space and let's welcome back in our friend, guest du jour of Charlotte Wilder's Wednesday on Tuesday, the co-host of Oddball with Amin El Hassan, Charlotte Wilder, ladies and gentlemen. Fresh off an anniversary, by the way. Happy first wedding anniversary to our nation's premier husband girl.
Thank you so much, guys. I've missed you so. I'm so thrilled to be back. I do want to shout out, I forget who commented this, somebody that I don't know, but clearly consumes our content on Instagram when I posted, the first anniversary post, which let me just say, thank God for anniversaries, because it is a great excuse to repost the wedding pictures you didn't get to share the first time, but I also did that for New Year's and my husband's birthday, so whatever. But the point is, somebody commented and said, "Are you still a big husband guy?" And I said, "You know what, sir? Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching GoJo and Golic with Jesse Cofield on a Wilder Wednesday on a Tuesday. I couldn't be happier to be back. What a way to re-enter society."
You still in the honeymoon phase a year in?
Yeah. I mean, we still really like each other,
That's big.
Maybe even
if
love.
that's the honeymoon phase. Yeah, you might even say we love each other. Yeah, senior. So yeah, things are great.
You said you love him. Oh
I'm
my
gonna start
God.
blushing. It's like a
him.
reflex
You
from
said you-
school when someone teases you.
It's like, ew, you like him. It's like, yeah, we've been married for a whole year. I hope
bro.
so. Yeah, bro, you see what you did right here? You ain't getting it back. By the way, we haven't gotten to talk about it yet on the show, Charlotte, and your now year-old nuptials are the perfect excuse to get back into this. Jesse Cofield wasn't with us for Monday of this week because she was coming fresh off not one but 2 weddings in the same weekend this weekend. She pulled a doubleheader,
No.
2 weddings in the same location on the same weekend. Jesse, I need to hear about what your strategy was for surviving this and how that actually went.
Yeah, so we had a Saturday and Sunday wedding, and funny enough, it was, like you said, it was at the same place. And my strategy for Saturday night was the first wedding. I was like, all right, I'm gonna take it easy. I'm gonna have 1.5 drinks, just take it real easy. The dancing starts, we'll ha, and then we'll get out of here, go to bed early. Night number 2, maybe we're gonna enjoy ourselves a little bit more. So night 2 rolls around, I'm like, all right, I'm having 3 drinks, and I'm
Oh my God.
feeling myself, having a good time, have a great time. I come home, and it is as if my children had some kind of a sixth sense and knew mommy had had a few drinks, and these 2 angels that normally sleep through the night decided to stay up all night. Crying. I would get one down, the other would get up. My husband and I are like, you take this one, I got this one, blah, blah, blah. It was so horrible. And it really just was a lesson. And now I live in fear of having more than 2 drinks. I will be sticking to my 1.5 drinks because, God forbid, I can't take the risk of this happening again.
Jesse, where were
the
these
truth.
weddings?
I mean,
Sorry, let's get down to the important stuff.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, this is when my kids were young and Chris and I would get a babysitter and go out. You learn quickly. You may enjoy that night, but you're not going to enjoy the morning.
Yeah.
Because the babysitter leaves when you come home, and when the kids get up, they don't care that mommy and daddy went out. They don't care at all. They don't care at all. They just want mommy, daddy time, playtime. Or in your case, Jesse, just decide not to go to sleep and just mess with you.
Truly a nightmare situation.
When we were up in Maine, where a bunch of my family is, my cousin and his wife, they have 3 kids. I love them dearly. And we babysat them. And it was just the difference between putting a girl to bed and putting a boy to bed was pretty funny, because I was putting I call them my niece and nephew. I was putting our niece to bed, and she was so sweet. And she was like, when are mommy and daddy coming home? And I was like, they'll be back soon. And then she falls right asleep. Meanwhile, in our nephew's room, I just hear Tyler and this kid just chatting. They're just chatting away. Everybody else has gone to sleep. And I go in, and our nephew is just counting on his hands. And he goes, like out of the blue, he's like, yeah, I think I've got like 10 or 11 best friends. And I was like, okay, it's time to go to sleep.
Let's wrap this thing up. Land the plane, buddy.
I was like,
Wrap it up.
like, Tyler, you're leaving. We got to get this guy to go to bed. So I had a little taste
Also,
of
I mean,
Jesse.
God, that kid's popular as hell. He's a future Jesse Cofield having 2 weddings on one weekend, because that was my biggest concern, Jesse, was were you better friends with one wedding over the other? How you structured that? Because were you in either of these weddings? Were you just a guest at both? How did that work?
No, I was in neither of these weddings. I was a guest, and these were my husband's family friends. So this was I was not. If it had been 2 of my like close friends in a weekend, I would be in the hospital right now, because 2 in a row, like no chance. No, this was like I fulfilled my obligation by showing up,
right,
and showing my face. Okay, so no, I did not. There was nothing expected of me at either of these weddings, thank God. But yeah, the biggest thing for me was, again, like I said, I had 3 drinks at the second wedding, which for me these days is a lot of drinks. And the big thing that really took me out was staying up late. Okay, your girl does not stay up late. She doesn't enjoy it, not anymore. And I had to stay up late both nights. By late, I mean past 10 p.m. And it was not right. I don't feel right. I still don't feel right.
It's an abomination. We're glad that you survived and made it back out of that, because it is perilous post-30 staying up that late and consuming a number of alcoholic beverages. The difference is I don't have little people that look at me when I do that and decide, hey, you know what? Now's the time that the chickens come home to roost. So it is a dangerous reminder that it seems like, based on all my friends' accounts, including you, Jesse, once you've got kids, they are basically a hangover, like heat-seeking missile. Once they know, oh, mommy and daddy aren't going to be feeling great, that is when they decide to spring into action and unload the clip on all of the things that they have learned in their short lives. So we're glad you survived that. It's a difficult situation. Dad, another difficult situation. Charlotte, that we have to contend with, is picking the NFL awards for this year. So the season starts in a couple of days. We are finally there. A reminder to everybody, we are going to be in Kansas City live, helping kick off this season here. Us, the God Bless Football crew, Trey Wingo, and the new folks from the new pregame power-up show are all going to be out there in Kansas City ahead of that game at Arrowhead. So come check us out and say hi if you're there. But that also means we got to get the takes on wax now before the season gets going and people try and claim that we're bamboozling them. So Dad, today we're going to do the NFL awards. We'll take a look at top 5 offenses and defenses tomorrow, and then obviously give our Super Bowl picks and all that stuff on Thursday in the lead up to that game. But I want to look at the NFL awards, Dad. And why don't we start and lead our way up to MVP and things like that? Why don't we start off with the Rookie of the Year choices here? So Offensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year, where last season we remember the Houston Texans, a clean sweep of those awards with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. So, Dad, as we look out to Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, why don't we start with there? Who are your picks for that award and why?
To me, it was between Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jaden Daniels. But I'm gonna go with one of the quarterbacks, just because they're touching the ball every play, and I'm gonna go with Jaden Daniels because of his ability to tuck the ball and run. So I think he is. The Washington team, I think, is being undervalued this year for what they can possibly do. And Jaden Daniels can lead the way. You hear nothing but great things about what he has done in camp and having command of the offense. And I just think with his running ability, which is paramount in the NFL nowadays, he is going to sparkle with the most numbers. He may not have the most wins, but I think he's going to have the best numbers. And I think he'll win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
All right, Sparkle, I like that. I went Marvin Harrison Jr. on this one. I know, very brave of me here. We've picked the guys that are second and thirds in the odds on DraftKings Sportsbook. Jaden Daniels plus 475. Marvin Harrison Jr. at plus 650. I just think, Dad, going into that offense where the tight end was a breakout candidate last year, and Trey McBride, who really ended up being the leader, I think, in targets, receptions, and yards for that team. Kyler Murray's back healthy now, another year in Drew Pretzing's offense. So I just think all of that coming together, and you talk about the love coming out of training camp, pretty much everyone looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. and saying that's what a professional football player looks like. So I'll go there. Dad, Defensive Rookie of the Year, I went Byron Murphy in Seattle. I just think the perfect marriage of scheme and player. We know that Mike McDonald comes over, bringing that scheme from Baltimore. Justin Madubuike, fresh off a nice payday at the D tackle spot in that team. And Byron Murphy was probably my favorite defensive player in this draft. Seemed to get more of the late buzz coming off Texas's great season. Dynamic athlete, a little bit of a sawed-off shotgun at D tackle, athletic enough to drop into coverage the way that we know Mike McDonald likes to use them for. Maybe he gets his hands on a football, but I think that team could be froggy in the NFC West. That defense is primed to take a big leap, and I think he'll be a huge part of why.
I'm going to go Latu, the edge rusher from the Colts, the first defensive player picked in this draft. In the last 11 years, there's only been one off-ball linebacker, Shaq Leonard, to win the award. Other than that, it's been the pass rushers, whether interior like a Byron Murphy or an edge guy like Latu. So I think those are actually two good picks. I'll go with the edge rusher. You go with the interior rusher.
All right, Charlotte, here's where it gets interesting. Comeback player of the year. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers, and it seems like I'm taking the bait that everyone wants us to take, but I think lost in the conversation around Aaron Rodgers and everything that he said about going to Egypt and ayahuasca and all this stuff is the fact that now we're finally going to get the chance to see, because I God willing, like, whatever you think about the guy, no one wants to see this guy lose another season 4 plays into it the way that we did last year. And so barring something unforeseen like that, which I don't think we'll get, he's walking into a team that's improved in a lot of ways, has had weapons on offense, and I think still on his best day, he's probably done winning MVPs, but I think he can still be a pretty damn good quarterback. And so if the Jets take that kind of leap, I won't be shocked if he is in line for it, considering we know now this award is going to be for people actually returning from injury and not just coming back from being benched or backups.
Okay. I have something that I feel like Aaron Rodgers might get hurt again very early in the season. I think the mojo of putting the Jets on Monday Night Football again to start the season. I know, it's San Francisco. They won't be in New York. The vibes will be a little bit different. It's where Aaron Rodgers is from. Something about it feels just like a little too primed for disaster. So, Mike, I hope you're right from a football perspective. I do feel I feel like that's a bold pick, but I respect it. I really respect it.
Dad, who'd you go with there?
I'm going to go with the Joe Burrow. I'm going to go with the coming back, and now maybe not going to have Jamar Chase right away. We'll see where that one goes. But I think it is going to be either Aaron Rodgers or Joe Burrow, both in line if they can stay healthy for monster comeback years.
Yeah, those are 1 and 2 in the odds. Aaron Rodgers plus 140, Joe Burrow plus 300. Anthony Richardson probably where the value is at plus 700, considering coming back off that season-ending shoulder injury, a team that's got big-time boom or bust potential.
By the way, in the irony, when Aaron Rodgers got hurt against the Bills, it was Leonard Floyd who sacked him, and he was hurt. Leonard Floyd is now on the 49ers, who are playing the Jets on Monday Night Football in game 1. I mean,
all I'm saying,
the irony?
Senior, I hope that this is a reverse jinx, that what I'm saying right now, I don't want this to be one of those things where it's like, clip it because Charlotte said that, a week ago, but we'll see.
He is a damn near 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, which Kirk Cousins, another name on here that I'm sure people are going to bring up, 36, but coming off a similar injury in an offense that's expected to take a big step forward. So lots to think about and contemplate with that one. So I go Aaron Rodgers. Dad goes Joe Burrow. Dad, let's go offensive and defensive player of the year and start on defense. I'm going to go with Myles Garrett. Surprise, surprise. We haven't had a defensive player of the year repeat since Aaron Donald did it a few years back. I think Myles Garrett, especially if he can stay healthy for the entirety of the season. They've got plenty of weapons on that defense. They re-signed Zadarius Smith. They just signed Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to an extension there. It's going to be the best defense in football, and he's going to be the best player on that defense. So I'm going to go really point A to point B on this.
I am going to go with Max Crosby from the Raiders at 14.5 sacks last year, and has Christian Wilkins to help on the D-line now. We got a little bit of help. Something, we're looking for, and for Detroit, Aiden Hutchinson to get some help, though they have revamped that D-line a little bit there. But getting the help, getting some interior help I think will help Max Crosby. So the 110-mile-an-hour guy on every single play, I'm going to go with Crosby. Even though I don't think the team is going to do all that well, I do think he will have a monster year.
He's going to get one at some point, and this year wouldn't surprise me all that much. He is that caliber of player. He just needs the right setting to do that. Offensive Player of the Year, Dad, I went Garrett Wilson. He was 4th in the NFL in targets last year, knowing what their quarterback situation was. Only 3 touchdowns on the season. There's lots of room for improvement, given the fact that this offense should be a lot better with Aaron Rodgers. So I think he's already been productive. I think he's going to be playing on a team that'll get plenty of attention. And we know this is basically for the best offensive player that's not a quarterback. So it seems to fit those categories.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick with the best players, not a quarterback. And I'm going to go CeeDee Lamb. While I do think Dallas has taken a step back, CeeDee Lamb is really all they have. He finished just 50 yards behind Tyreek Hill, last year's winner, the Offensive Player of the Year, and 1 touchdown behind him. So he was right there with Tyreek Hill in offensive production. And I think that production is going to be there again, just because they don't have a running game. They don't really have a passing game outside of him. So he is going to get his. So I do think this is the year that he will win Offensive Player of the Year.
All right, I want to get us through Coach of the Year so we can spend a little time on MVP and get those picks out there. But for Coach of the Year, Dad, I went back and looked. In the last 10 seasons, Coach of the Year has gone 7 out of those 10 times to a coach that came from a team who was below 500. So you're either usually making the jump, or like last year with Kevin Stefanski, having to go through and make chicken salad out of chicken you-know-what with 4 different quarterbacks. So with that in mind, I'm going to kind of meld both of those worlds and go with Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings, and say the combination of being sub 500 last year, they were 7-10, and now having to go out here in the grand Sam Darnold experiment for a coach that is well liked, has a good reputation, and if they succeed, it's going to be credit-wise going to him, because we all have known Sam Darnold, and if you get the best out of him, that's going to be a feather in the cap of the play caller. So I'll say KOC takes it home this year.
Yeah, that's a good one, depending on certainly what they can do in that division. I'm going to go with Matt Eberflus from the Bears. I think Ryan Poles could be set up for the Executive of the Year with the help they've gotten Caleb Williams, but I think they're going to improve, maybe make the playoffs, but I think they're going to have the arrow pointing up on what they're doing with the new players that they got and the additions that they have made. So I think Matt's in for a good year. I think the arrow's up on the Bears, and I think they come through. I don't know if it's playoff bound, but enough improvement where he wins Coach of the Year.
All right, and let's finish this off with the MVP. And I got to say, this is kind of trolling, this is kind of vibes, and it's kind of based in football. But I look and say, hey, how great would it be if Dak Prescott, riding into his last year, betting on himself, getting ready to approach unrestricted free agency because Jerry Jones and the Cowboys wanted to bleep around and find out, went out here and took last year's runner-up MVP finish, because that's a reminder, Dak finished second in the MVP voting last year and got over the pylon this season. So I'll go Dak Prescott purely because I want to watch the world burn and see what happens if a standing MVP actually hits free agency.
That's so tantalizing. If he is the MVP and he's a true free agent, that would be unfrigging believable.
And he's plus 2,000 at DraftKings Sportsbook right now, so you'd be getting a real bargain.
So you'd make some money, and he's going to make a lot of money. I'm not going to, and you just go on a ledge. You said he was a runner-up last year. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to, listen, in the last 6 years, there have been 3 players who have won the award. Lamar Jackson twice, Mahomes twice, and Aaron Rodgers twice. So I'm going to say in the last 7 years after this year, there's still going to be just 3 players that win the award, as Patrick Mahomes will get his 3rd. I just think he talked about how he wasn't happy with the way the offense played last year, even though they won the Super Bowl. They added some weaponry to a great team already, and he's the best quarterback in the league. So I think he stands out this year and wins the MVP.
All right, there we go. All of the correct picks for who's going to win the awards this season. The ones I said, not the ones my dad said. You guys can add GoJo and Golic on that. I'm sure all of you agree with that. Just as I'm sure everyone agreed, as I already heard yesterday in texts and DMs, with my NFL power rankings going into the season. So coming up next, we'll let you guys tear me to pieces over how I ranked all 32 teams in the league on GoJo and Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. With the season opener less than a week away, Jamar Chase is still not practicing with the Bengals. He was in street clothes, did not practice with the team again on Monday as he waits for a new deal. And GoJo has the Bengals pretty firmly in the top 10 of his power rankings. Charlotte, you've seen these, okay? You've seen GoJo's power rankings. Anything jump out to you about this list here?
Yeah, a few things. I'm gonna be harsh before I'm gentle. Gojo, the Bills at 5, I think, is a little wild. I understand why you did it. I think that there is a reset there with their offense, and they've got, they've moved on from Stephon Diggs, which I think was a little bit more of an issue maybe than we knew. But I kind of want to defend you over having the Cowboys over the Eagles, because I think that's what you're getting a lot of heat for. I feel like the Cowboys right now, especially with Dak Prescott in the last year of his contract, as you said, I feel like they have a little bit of freedom that they haven't had. Nobody is really expecting them to be great in the way that they were expected to be last year. It's like, okay, fool me once, you can't fool me kind of thing. And so I think that can actually be very freeing for the Cowboys. I think the Eagles have the pressure that the Cowboys had last season or the season before that. I know that the Eagles have also had pressure, but something vibes wise here, I think that this could be a year where the Cowboys I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Sorry, Dallas. But I do think that there's a chance here to play with a little more freedom and kind of effort attitude than maybe they've been able to in the past.
They can't play with freedom. There's too much pressure on them every single year put on by their owner. They can't. They're not better than Philadelphia. They shouldn't be ahead of Philadelphia in your power rankings. Philadelphia is the better team top to bottom. Dallas has no running game. They have one receiver. They had trouble stopping the run. I don't understand that power ranking at all. And I think it's always a team that plays under pressure because, again, of their owner and Jerry Jones. That's just what I think. The Bills are too high at 5, and I definitely would not put the Cowboys ahead of the Eagles, Mike.
They're one spot ahead of the Eagles. I don't know that you can look me in the face and clearly tell me that the Eagles are that much better than the Dallas Cowboys, even if you're giving them the most favorable read for a team that's got a ton of new parts, lost leadership, had their quarterback looked like he took a step back last year and was dinged up and is trying to meld with a new offense, all for a team on the other side that's just won 12 games for 3 straight years and yet didn't get any better, but I also don't think got a ton worse in the process. So I feel like we do such wild swings with that team. It's still going to be a good football team. To Charlotte's point, this is a power ranking now. I think the Eagles have the higher ceiling. I think I would pick them to go further because the Dallas Cowboys have to prove to me that they can win a damn playoff game. But right now, I still think that can be a pretty good football team.
So I know it's now. I get it. Power rankings change every week. But what would lead you to believe that the Dallas Cowboys are better than the Eagles right now? And saying the Eagles are going to have a better season overall, why would the Cowboys be better right now?
Because their roster underwent less attrition over the last season. I mean, the Eagles, Dad, are going to be relying on a bunch of rookies to make pretty big impact. The Georgia players up front that thus far have not been able to take up the mantle for some of the guys that they were drafted to replace. I still have questions about, hey, is that linebacker room, even though they brought in guys from the offseason, are they going to be good enough to supplement what we saw last year? I think they're going to be better, but assuming they're going to come right away and be the 22 team is just not something I'm comfortable with at this point. I think they're going to be good. We're going to do division picks on Thursday. I go back and forth every day thinking about picking the Dallas Cowboys or the Eagles to actually win that division. I think both can be playoff teams, but I would say Philadelphia has the ceiling where I go with the talent on that roster and the way they supplemented it this offseason. I think they have a higher ceiling. I think they can go further in the playoffs than the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm saying I do still think the Dallas Cowboys are a decently floored team.
Well, you're wrong on the power ranking for that one. So, the Bills at 5 you have the Texans behind them at 6, the Bengals at 7. I can see the power ranking right now with the Bengals at 7. Maybe even go lower with them because it's not looking like Jamar Chase is going to be playing. For a Sunday game, Wednesday today is install day. And if he's out there in shorts and a T-shirt again, that's really going to be leaning toward him not playing. And then I would agree with them being 7 or maybe even lower than 7 in the first week power rankings.
Yeah, I that one worries me a little bit now. I still think ultimately he's not going to miss the whole season. They'll be able to get him back there. And then that combination of him and Burrow, Trent Brown going to start at tackle. Not Amarius Mims, the rookie that they drafted who dealt with a pec injury during camp, but they've done a lot with that O-line. I think the defense, especially now that they sorted out the safety room, is going to get a bunch better. But yeah, they're right in that mix. The Buffalo team, I admit, Buffalo, I'm probably a little high on that just because of the way we saw Josh Allen play at the back half of last season. And I think we've seen, hey man, in offense and defense, when you can simplify, rush for and get to the quarterback and run the ball really well with a quarterback who's an alien now at this point in his career, I just think that that's a pretty stable stock to buy. As we're looking at the Texans, who were a great team last year and I expect to be great again. They're deep, they've got the quarterback, but it's also a young quarterback. It's also a coach, as a head coach who's in only his second year. So I'm building in some volatility for them in the Green Bay Packers based on that.
I'm just really glad that the Patriots weren't last.
Well, I was going to ask you guys
who you thought was the worst team in the NFL, because this is the one I had a lot tougher time with than organizing the best, was organizing the bottom of the NFL.
I would have the Panthers last, and I would have the Patriots 31st. I would have the Patriots second to last. I think we're all underselling the Commanders a little bit. You have them at 30th. With Dan Quinn as a head coach to help the defense out, as I said, I think Jaden Daniels will be the offensive rookie of the year. They have Austin Eckler. They have Terry McLaurin. I know they revamped their O-line some. I'm not talking about them being a top 10 team, but I don't think they're 30th either. I think they're a little bit better than that. But I would definitely have the Panthers last, Charlotte, and then unfortunately your Patriots second last.
So Charlotte is second last and last, really, in this ranking, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the Giant one is tough for me because I do think the offense is going to look different with Daniel Jones being a rusher, and the Malik Neighbors factor of it all changes the complexion of what they can do completely. I think Brian Daboll's a good coach, and defensively their front four is going to be awesome, but the offensive line and how they've organized that this offseason, what they have or really haven't added to that group to try and shore it up in front of Daniel, I didn't get much more of a vote of confidence off that based on what we saw in the preseason either. So would we at least agree this group of teams, the Patriots, Broncos, Commanders, Panthers, and Giants, probably constitute in some order the bottom 5, or is one of those teams deserve to be above the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Chargers, or the Colts?
If there was a team I would put above, it would be the Commanders. They're the ones that I think could be a little bit higher. You have been pretty high on the Rams, and you have them 11. You don't have them as a top 10 team right now.
Injuries during camp scared me a little bit. Offensive line dealt with some injuries. Matthew Stafford dealt with the hamstring. Puka Nacua dealt with a knee injury. So that just brushed me back off my fastball a little bit with that team. But Charlotte, I still very much drinking the Rams Kool-Aid for anyone who will listen to me this offseason talk about them.
Yeah, look, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid too, and on the Rams, maybe not quite. I think 11, I like where you put them. The one thing I want to say about the Giants being last is that they have 3 clones at quarterback. They've got Daniel Jones, they've got Drew Lock, they've got Tommy DeVito. I think maybe they could do some Freaky Friday stuff where nobody knows which one is actually playing in that moment, and it gives them a little bit of, that's another weapon they can trick other teams with, guys.
Well, it's like visually, but you've got like 3 different shades of white boy, of like Jeezy rapping on the sideline white boy, incredibly Italian white boy. And then you've got Daniel Jones, the khaki pants, sort of Eli Manning clone, just younger and like more Clark Kentish because he's big, tall, and jacked, where, Eli
just saying, put a helmet on him. Hard to tell the difference.
There we go.
That's true.
We'll look for a Giants Freaky Friday situation coming up near you. Giants fans, I don't hate your team. I just have questions. I think Daniel Jones is a nice man and a talented quarterback. I just need to see it work maybe before I'm going to necessarily believe in it. Coming up next, though, big drama in the W. Let's roll out and check out the white t-shirt rule that's in effect for one WNBA superstar next. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield, and Charlotte Wilder here. As always, you guys can check out Oddball, Charlotte Wilder, and Amin El Hassan every day but Monday on the DraftKings Network. Kicking it to you. Charlotte, what do you guys do for the offseason here, especially for the NBA right now? I mean, we're getting close-ish now that the fall is getting started up. So are you guys in preview mode yet? What's going on over there?
You know, Gojo, I'm going to figure that out today. We were off for 2 weeks, which was a really lovely time to be off in the NBA news cycle. Last year, we went right through, and that's where things started getting a little interesting. So I think we're all coming back refreshed, ready with the takes, and I'm excited. I just can't wait for things to start getting messy again. That's when we are in our best form, I would say, Gojo.
I would say, well, you know what? In the meantime, Charlotte, we have got plenty of WNBA musings for you as that season rolls along, going closer and closer towards the postseason. Natasha Cloud getting a 1-game suspension because she went over the league's technical foul limit, which obviously not great there. But this is the one I thought was really interesting in a league where we have seen, especially this season, the fits have been incredible. We know, like the NBA, fashion is a huge part of this league. A'ja Wilson going out here and leading from the front decided to change her wardrobe to exclusively white t-shirts until she believes that the Aces are back in the place that they need to be in terms of production as teams. She said until they start, they're 4-3 since she started wearing the plain white t-shirts to the game the plain white t-shirts to the game. So I guess that still remains to be seen. But Charlotte, this is a team that obviously has championship aspirations. She's going to win another MVP. And so she is leading in a way that people can actually see, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think it's really, I love when I saw that, I loved it. I'm not someone who thinks, what you do off the court is a massive distraction for what you do on it. I think she probably could have kept wearing her, beautiful outfits. She really knows how to dress. And they still could have, come back the way they are. But, if wearing a white t-shirt is getting her a 41-point game, as she did against the Mercury on Sunday, then keep wearing them. I just like that there's this visual representation of what she's trying to do with her team, where it's this dedication to it. It might seem silly to people outside of the basketball world, but I think that, as I've said so many times, the leadership in these environments is huge. And for her to say, you know what, I'm not going to devote any brain space, even if it's my stylist doing it. Forgive me, I'm not sure if she's a stylist or if she does this herself, but I think
bold accusations.
No, I think that there's something very cool about her saying, you know what, I'm just going to wear this until I feel we are back.
They're 4-3 with her in the white t-shirt. It's not working. Change.
Well, they're both 500.
Listen, different color shirt. Steve Jobs.
I'm not one that believes in any of that kind of superstition thing at all. That what you do off the court or off the field or off the ice has any bearing on what you do on. But hey, if for some players it puts them in a better mental state, then hey, go for it. Go for it. Do your thing. But they're 4-3 in the white t-shirt. It's not working.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Charlotte, for you, she does have a stylist, Amadi Brooks. Okay, so you were correct. Yes.
Thank you. I couldn't recall the name at the time.
Yes.
But maybe it's sure, senior, they're 4-3, but they're not 3-4, and maybe there's something symbolic about it that she's like, I just can't even let that, or maybe she should start dressing again in her amazing fits, because then maybe they'd be 7-6-1. I don't know. Math is very difficult, guys.
Math is very difficult. Charlotte, you did say you wanted the mess, though. And while I don't want to touch this particular mess with a 10-foot pole in what we've seen going on with like Cheryl Swoops and Stephen A. Smith and Nancy Lieberman, and apparently their like severed friendship over what they believe is Cheryl Swoops not giving enough credit to Caitlin Clark during the course of the season. Those are wild sentences for me to open up my timeline and read every day, and seems pretty poisonous discourse-wise. And it was honestly something, Charlotte, Dad and I talked about this the other day, that I kind of thought we were past relative to the Caitlin Clark experience in the WNBA, considering the back half of the season has basically just been her and Angel Reese taking turns breaking various records, both rookie records and just WNBA records in general over the course of this season. And I thought it was not that inflammatory to say, yeah, Caitlin Clark overwhelmingly going to win, Rookie of the Year now in the W, based on the fact that not only has she been record-breaking individually, but the team success that we often lionize with the awards has now shown up for the Indiana Fever, who are above 500 for the first time in 5 years. So I'm stunned that we're getting this brand of conversation still. I guess maybe I shouldn't be given the sources, but do you agree that you thought we were kind of past this stuff?
You know, Gojo, I wish I could say yes. On Oddball, we joke that we have 2 contractually obligated segments we need to do, and that's a LeBron segment and a Caitlin Clark segment. I think that her name still, for a audience outside of not just the WNBA, but the basketball world and the sports world in general, carries such weight. And that is something I think when we're in the sports world, we're like, well, of course, everybody knows who, name any player that we think is a big deal that other people might not necessarily know outside. People know who Caitlin Clark is. And I think that a lot of these people talking about her are still getting a lot of mileage out of using her name, maybe not always in the best faith scenarios of getting takes off and making noise. I think that when it comes to what she's done with the Fever, I mean, their win total this year is above their win total for the past 3 years, I believe, or equal to it. And I think that when you're able to do, clearly Aaliyah Boston got there last year. She deserves a lot of credit. Their team improved. And then Caitlin Clark comes, and I think she needed time to get into this groove that we've now seen that she is incredible, and she will continue to be incredible and improve. And I think that if people were actually interested in talking about her and her basketball, more than like what they could get out of her in terms of clout or in terms of being listened to, that would be great. But that's not necessarily the content world we currently live in.
Yeah, you're right. The content world we live in definitely still has this off-field talk going on. And on the court, I mean, she has collected 17% of the flagrant fouls this year. So she's definitely feeling it as a rookie, and people coming after her a little bit. Also, I'm wondering, we talked about, if they could make the playoffs, if Chicago could make the playoffs, and Chicago's tied with Atlanta right now for that last spot. Indiana's absolutely making the playoffs. They have 7 more games. They finish up with 3 of the games with teams that are above them, 2 against the Aces, 1 against the Lynx. And they're sitting in the 6th slot right now, 2.5 away from the 5th slot, the Seattle Storm. Not only are they going to make the playoffs, but Charlotte, do you think they could actually do damage in the playoffs this year? They haven't made it since 2015, first time over 500 in God knows how many years. But do you think they could actually make a dent in the playoffs?
I do. I think the way that they've been playing since the Olympic break and the All-Star break is phenomenal. And I think what they've got, I mean, Lexi Hull, who's such a defensive player, having double-digit scoring in the past couple games, like everybody's heating up at the right time. We always talk about Caitlin Clark, but this is a team that seems to be playing as a team. And I think as Coach Christy Side said, she took a lot of heat earlier in the season, I think it's like now's the time to empty the tank. And if they keep doing that, Senior, I think that this team, I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. I think that what we're going to see in the playoffs from this WNBA season is going to be electric. I also, even before we get there, the Fever playing the Aces twice at home is going to be theater, and I cannot wait. I have my popcorn.
Yeah, it has been. It's been truly incredible. We're now what Caitlin Clark has come over here with this organization, sort of unlocked all these other star players that have been on this team, weathering the storm of these single-digit win seasons, and now have the opportunity to go into the postseason, because it's just one of those things. Sometimes it all comes together where a bunch of great players just needed one more thing to come into place for it to finally work out, and Caitlin Clark thus far has been that thing. So, cool moment to see. You have checked the box, Charlotte, for your guys' segment. Now we can officially go on with our lives in our merry way here and continue supporting all of the women of the W who are doing an incredible job and showing us how great the basketball has been there for quite some time. Coming up next, let's finish off the show the way we always do with this, that, and a third, and a look at a new twist on a classic yesterday as Joey Chestnut goes long on the Dogs. Next. All right, guys, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review the show. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and all those fun places. If you miss us live or any of our great guests, and thank you to Missouri head football coach Eli Drinkwitz, Annie Agar, NFL analyst over at Stadium for joining us, and of course, our good friend Charlotte Wilder, who you can check out her podcast and show with me and El Hassan here on the DraftKings Network every day but Monday and wherever you get your podcasts. So, guys, let's get to this, that, and the third and start off with this. We've talked about the summer of Anthony Edwards, who in addition to leading a resurgent Minnesota Timberwolves team this season, also went to the Olympics and was a part of a lot of fun there. And really, in general, the Minnesota renaissance that we now have put on wax in the form of recreating an iconic picture. Dad, you remember back in the day, there was a picture of Randy Moss and Kevin Garnett swapping jerseys when they were both stars in that city. Well, now it appears that we've got Anthony Edwards and Justin Jefferson getting ready to remake that in a photo shoot too. So kind of nice for Minnesota to be able to go back and relive some of the glory days with two young stars that are unarguably two of the best at what they do right now.
And you know, we talked about that a switch over from one sport to the other. Anthony Edwards, he I believe he was a quarterback when he played football and could, I think, have definitely made the switch to the NFL or make the switch if he had continued to play football. But obviously, he's doing pretty well in the NBA.
Anthony Edwards is one of those guys where you could put any, you know, there's a whole thing where he said he could beat the ping pong players. I mean, the table tennis players at the Olympics. And someone was like, no, actually, he's like a very good table tennis player. You could tell me that about anything. You could say Anthony Edwards is actually highly skilled at badminton, and I would believe you. So, but I love this. I absolutely love this. I love when players who are current make nods to the past. I think Minnesota has so much sports heartbreak in their history that there's something really beautiful about playing into the hope. And so the Timberwolves are incredible. The Vikings are looking promising, and we'll see what happens, GoJo.
I have no doubt that when we get the audio from this photo shoot eventually, then Anthony Edwards at some point will allude to Justin Jefferson that he could be a better wide receiver than him. Like, would 100%. We talk about, like, Anthony Edwards has defensive back confidence and wide receiver confidence seemingly married into one. It's a remarkable and very dangerous commodity that he's found himself with. And so I hope with great power, he exercises great responsibility, because if not, we're all in a whole lot of trouble. Speaking of great power, Jesse, let's go on to that from yesterday. Joey Chestnut and Kobayashi finally got back together for the duel on Netflix, and Joey Chestnut did not disappoint with another record-breaking performance.
Yeah, so they went head-to-head in the head-to-head unfinished beef competition. It was broadcast by Netflix, like you said. So these two have not competed against each other since 2009, and Joey Chestnut went out and cemented his legacy. So he's the 16-time Nathan's hot dog eating champ. On Monday, he chowed down on 83 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes, beating his own world record and obviously crushing Kobayashi in the process, really just cementing himself as the GOAT.
Yeah, Dad.
I'm wondering.
Go ahead, Dad.
I'm wondering, have they been doing it wrong in the Nathan's hot dog eating contest? Because in this battle, you could not dip the bun in water, and the hot dog had to be in the bun. You had to actually eat it like you would eat a hot dog out at a picnic. You had to have the hot dog in the bun, and you couldn't water down the bun. Where in the Nathan's hot dog, they have them separate. They're sticking the bun in the water, and he blows away his own record by eating a hot dog a regular way.
Well, see, I thought they were dry dogging this, but it turns out you could still drink water. You just couldn't dunk it. So they had water on the table, which is a thing. When Joey came on the show with us and said the rules are different, we can't dunk the hot dogs, I mistakenly, Charlotte, took that as the dogs would be dry. Instead, they were just moistened at a different point in the process. And so now, Joey Chestnut may have revolutionized the game if we ever get him back on the Major League Eating circuit.
Yeah. For sure, guys. Love thinking about all of this. Not
What, a
feeling
lubed up
nauseous
glizzy
at
doesn't
all.
get you guys all ready to go in the morning?
I mean, look,
Come
I think it's
on.
a feat. I think it's very impressive, and it is not perhaps my favorite sport to watch. Let's
The funniest part about this one, guys, was that normally when you have the Major League Eating version of this out at Coney Island, one, there's different circumstances, outdoor versus indoors, humidity and weather become much more of a factor, and the dogs and how they're cooked. So this is a controlled environment like we had when I called it for the first time in 2020, but I digress. But Dad, the interesting thing at the end of this was normally we talk about chipmunking in Major League Eating, where whatever you've got in your mouth when the buzzer sounds, you're allowed to finish. And so you see guys cram it at the end. In this one, I was kind of not paying attention, but then I looked up and whatever they had left in their mouth, they actually spit out to a guy who had a little container. And then they weighed the amount of food that was in their house. It was bizarre. That part I didn't hear the explanation on because I showed up late to the party. So I don't know what that is. We could probably do without it though.
Yeah, probably do without that. But one thing, Kobayashi came back for one hot dog eating contest. Now he'll go back into the hot dog eating contest oblivion because he got smoked. I mean, this was not a competition. So, you can be in the competitive eating world, but, he's been out of the Nathans for a while now. And this was a great promotional thing. I'm sure they both made some good amount of money. We see athletes making money doing shows on on the streaming circuit doing shows on the streaming circuit. And I think now that's it for Kobayashi. I mean, there's no more battle of Kobayashi and
because remember,
Joey
Kobayashi
Chestnut.
was retired. He had announced earlier this offseason that he had retired for health reasons from competitive eating, and then I'm sure they presented the potential money windfall in front of him, and all of a sudden he unretired very quickly. But this doesn't seem like a guy who had been thinking about competitive eating in the same way that Joey had as of late. So but you saw, man, it's still like his crew in the crowd. I don't know if that was his family or his friends. They're like in tears at the end of this stuff. Like, it's not a game. It's a good reminder that this is serious business to everybody involved, and it was likely serious business for both of their wallets as well. So congratulations to friend of the program, Joey Chestnut. Hopefully he can reunite with the folks at Major League Eating for next year on Coney Island and try and break this record in the normal contest with everybody else. Jesse, let's get to the third here. Speaking of streaming services and interesting new programming here, Amazon Prime has another new series coming out soon.
Yeah, they're releasing a new doc on September 24th titled Evolution of the Black Quarterback. So it's an 8-part series. It's going to see 4-time Pro Bowler Michael Vick speak with past and present luminaries from the NFL to document the history of black quarterbacks across the league. Pretty cool. I'm definitely going to be watching this one, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be, again, like I said, Michael Vick, I think, Dad, leading the charge on this is going to be fascinating, too, going through, and I think it's a 3-part docuseries that we'll be able to go through here. As for so long, obviously, we saw these slights and the things that black quarterbacks had to overcome, and still do in this league now, but to see the volume of quarterbacks in this league who happen to be black, who are incredibly high-level performers, is a testament to all of the groundwork that the guys who came before them, who will be a part of this docuseries, laid to make these opportunities a reality.
Listen, it goes all the way back to 1923, the early days of the NFL, the Hammond Pros and Fritz Pollard. Fritz Pollard was the first black starting quarterback in the early NFL years. He was also the first black All-American quarterback, the first black quarterback to play in the Rose Bowl. So it goes back a ways. But what doesn't go back a ways, it took till 2017 when Geno Smith started for Eli Manning of the Giants. 2017 was when all 32 teams had started an African-American quarterback. It took till 2017. And the beginning of 2023, 14 of the 32 quarterbacks were black quarterbacks, Charlotte.
I think just the systemic change we've seen here, because so much of it was these bogus and racist assumptions that black quarterbacks couldn't do what white quarterbacks are doing. To see, I can't wait to see how they explore that aspect of it. And I'm really glad this is getting made, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yep, a fascinating story, and it seems like the right group of people to help tell this story. So excited to watch, listen, and consume that. We hope you enjoy watching, listening, and consuming this show and Oddball with Charlotte Wilder and Amin Elhassan. If you do, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review those programs, leave them 5-star ratings, and check us out here on GoJo Golic Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Thanks. We'll talk to you tomorrow.